Greetings in the name of the Most High Jah Rastafari. My good name is Marley Moses, the positive warrior, alongside...
Yes, sir, DJ D-Rage, the baddest. Each and every Wednesday from 10 p.m. on KBC Channel 1 TV.
Tunakuletea the biggest reggae party in 254 in a yard extra. Extra niceness of reggae music.
Extra dose of entertainment.
When the thing is nice, we
have to do it twice.
The world of governance is vast and can be alien to the ordinary man on the streets.
Critical issues are going to be discussed.
From white papers to policy positions, it is easier to get lost in the labyrinth of words.
Inside Government takes you to key global metropolis where critical decisions are made and where policies are crafted.
We interview policymakers and senior government officials to highlight and enumerate government policies and projects. We take a deep dive into the underbelly of complex red tape to demystify policies across the country, across the world. Join me, O'Brien Kimani, on Inside Government, only on KBC Channel 1.
Huyu karani, huyu sijui ni karani ama
anakuchoma na nini?
Ananichoma na hichi pala. Wewe niyo chichwa vile na meremeta.
Yeye ameenda akatoboa septic tank ya mtu mwingine akajaza ya jirani.
Kuna wakati nilileta hanisaka ikuje ilete uchafu kwa septic yanga.
Ayu anisaka.
Ati?
Ayu anisaka. Titai any confirmation of amechanganyikiwa na maisha mheshimiwa.
Wewe ndio umechanganyikiwa. Unafanya nini huko ukifanya kama ujenzi wa taifa hivi?
Ama chop winners mheshimiwa. Chop winners.
Good evening from wherever you're watching this live broadcast from, and thank you so much for choosing KBC Channel 1 to inform you tonight. Plenty of stories shaping the news in general news, business and sports, including that conversation with the Principal Secretary for Parliamentary Affairs, Aurelia Rono. My colleague John Jacob Kioria is at Railways headquarters, the venue for this discussion. JJ, this discussion began last week. What are we to expect tonight?
Thank you very much, Doreen, back at Broadcasting House. I'm sure the studio must be very cold, having not been there for the last 2 episodes of Prime Edition. And I thought, why not go get my co-anchor once more? And the Principal Secretary, Parliamentary Affairs, Aurelia Rono, is with us once again. This time we're doing this from her office, and the conversation continues. Just like we said last time, the conversation continues offline and online. And again today, we'll further the conversation on building synergy between the executive and the judiciary. And that's why we'll be picking up the conversation a little bit later. And she's already with us on set. As you can see her, ready and relaxed, waiting for that very moment when we shall further the conversation on building synergy between the executive and the parliament. And the State Department for Parliamentary Affairs is stationed in the Office of a Prime Cabinet Secretary. It's actually a State Department under the Office of a Prime Cabinet Secretary, like we said last time, and we'll be picking up the conversation where we left it last Wednesday. For now, let me hand you back to Doreen for some stories, and then we'll come back later to pick up the conversation from where we left last Wednesday. Back to you, Doreen.
Right, this is the place to keep it for that discussion coming in the next few minutes. Nonetheless, as I said, plenty of stories shaping the news. Top on this live broadcast. The spread of Kala-azar. 16 new cases of Kala-azar disease reported in Wajir and Marsabit, with the death toll now at 33. JSS crisis. Education CS Julius Migos says some junior secondary schools are having to make do with 2 or 3 teachers. A show of might. Iyala MP Falhada Iman and ODM nominated MP Omol Her in a fist fight within the presence of Parliament. And KDF soldiers demolish a sinking 11-story building in Mombasa. Prime Edition starts now. I'm Doreen Arange. Brian Muraru is our sign language interpreter. And now 16 new cases of Kala-azar disease have been reported in Wajir and Marsabit counties, with the death toll hitting 33 in the last 24 hours. Addressing the media in Wajir County, Principal Secretary for Public Health Mary Muthoni assured residents of containing the disease, with surveillance being enhanced in the northeastern counties.
Kala-azar, a parasitic disease transmitted by sandflies, has so far claimed 33 lives in Wajir and Marsabit counties since its outbreak in the country in October 2024. Despite the government's effort to eliminate the disease, new cases are still being reported, with 4 cases and 7 cases reported in Wajir and Marsabit counties respectively in the last 24 hours.
We still have Kala-azar in the northeastern counties. Wajir leading and Marsabit. Already we have 1,041 cases, and just last night we had 16 new cases that have been discovered. We already have 33 deaths.
However, Wajir Governor Ahmed Abdullahi has expressed optimism after confirming that the county hospitals are now discharging more patients than they are admitting, due to collaborations between the county and national health teams.
Working together with the national government and with also other players in this sector of health, I can comfortably say that we have brought it under control. And we are doing our very best to ensure that there is no one more life lost.
Children under the age of 5 years are the most affected, accounting for 74% of all infections and 88% of all deaths. Symptoms of Kala-azar include irregular bouts of fever, weight loss, enlargement of the spleen and liver, and anemia. Kasichana Masha, Prime Edition.
And the crisis of teacher shortage in junior secondary schools took center stage in the National Assembly on Wednesday afternoon, as Education Cabinet Secretary Julius Migos Ogamba fielded questions from members of Parliament. Lawmakers are demanding clarity on teacher recruitment and funding delays that continue to affect learners across the country.
A silent crisis continues to brew in the country's junior secondary schools, a critical shortage of teachers. Appearing before the National Assembly on Wednesday, Education Cabinet Secretary Julius Migos admitted that while efforts have been made, many schools are still grappling with limited staff, some relying on as few as 2 or 3 teachers.
It's true that there, and I've indicated it, that we do not have the optimal number of teachers in each school. So we are making do with the number that we have. But in 2025, for example, the teacher shortage stands at 98,461 teachers.
He added that the ministry is working closely with the Teachers Service Commission to retool existing teachers to better support the junior secondary school curriculum.
So that they are able to teach the subjects and they are able to meet the requirements of the students as we work towards employing more to ensure that we have enough. That's why we said we have employed 76,000 teachers in the last 1 or 2 years, and we continue making efforts to employ more depending on availability of budget.
But MPs pressed further, raising concerns over the issuance of employment letters allegedly involving members of parliament.
To clarify, because it's been out there, the public believes that members of this house are the ones that are recruiting teachers for Teacher Service Commission. I would like him to clarify whether it is members that are recruiting or is the Teacher Service Commission that is recruiting teachers in Kenya.
Mr. Speaker, as far as I know, TSC recruits teachers for the ministry. The teachers are not recruited by members of parliament.
Away from staffing concerns, the lawmakers also flagged cases of students being sent home for lack of school fees and delays in capitation.
Your plan in assuring that we do not have some students in Kenya who are always thrown out of class for lacking fees.
The head teachers are not allowed to send students home for lack of fees because secondary and primary schools is funded by the government unless it is the portion that relates to boarding that the parents pay. And we normally work very closely with the Ministry of Treasury to ensure that the capitation is released on time. Last September, it was released 2 days before opening, so we did not have that challenge. But in January, there was a bit of a challenge. We had to do it even in installments. For the second term that is coming, we are already engaging with the Treasury, including this morning we had a meeting with Treasury to try and negotiate with them to ensure that we receive the capitation before the schools open.
Meanwhile, in the Senate, Environment Cabinet Secretary Deborah Mulongo has dismissed reports of illegal logging in public forests. She said a multi-agency task force is already in place to clamp down on illegal logging and charcoal trade.
Forest officers and cadets has been a game changer, achieving a significant reduction in illegal forest activities which contribute to deforestation. The ministry again deployed a multi-agency security team to enforce and eradicate illegal logging and charcoal production. These enhanced surveillance and patrols. KFS has intensified surveillance efforts, including aerial monitoring and ground patrols, to deter illegal activities. These measures have contributed to a reduction in illegal logging and charcoal production.
Kamche Menza for Prime Edition.
Now, the government will allocate a budget towards the DNA testing and FINROL of bodies recovered from Shakahola forest in Kilifi County. Interior and Government Coordination Cabinet Secretary Kipchumba Murkomen, while defending the government against allegations of dragging its feet in releasing the findings of the probe, said the allocation of the budget will form the final stages of the conclusion of the probe that has been ongoing since March 2023.
2 years after the government launched a probe into the gory discovery of bodies in Shakahola forest, the investigation remains inconclusive, owing to difficulties in linking DNA samples to relatives. The bodies are yet to be released to their kin, owing to the DNA headache. Interior CS Kipchumba Murkomen says the exercise will conclude soon once the government has allocated a budget for the same.
Based on my briefing I've received here, I really think that there is need for a one-off budget that takes care of both collection of information, of samples, but most importantly in terms of final leg in terms of investigation, but also what to do with the people who are unable to come forward. We are unable to get DNA samples. What do we do with the site? Can we make it a memorial site for remembrance of these victims of, unfortunately, religious extremism and radicalization?
While on a security sensitization tour of Kilifi, Murkomen denied allegations that the government was dragging its feet on concluding the matter.
This is regrettable, and this is an indictment on the part of government, as a whole. It is something that should not happen in a country that has so many security apparatus, either whether somebody received intelligence information from the ground and maybe never acted on it, or we must own up as a government that this is a failure on our part.
In the meantime, Murkomen has warned government officers against aiding land grabbing in Kilifi County. Murkomen claims that land officials in the county are working in cahoots with national government administration officers, Ngao, judicial officers and police officers, being behind an emerging land grabbing racket, depriving locals of their land in favor of wealthy individuals.
After here, I will be seeking for consultation with the Chief Justice because part of the problems here is sometimes our judicial officers compound the problem when it comes to land issues by either issuing conflicting court orders or sometimes issuing, for example, an order on adverse possession.
The Kenya Defence Forces have brought down the 11-story building in Mombasa that had been sinking. During the exercise, nobody was injured as everyone had been evacuated from the surrounding area.
Early morning, and these were the scenes after the announcement that some roads, including the entry to the island through the Nyali Bridge, were barricaded to pave way for the planned demolition. Hours later, at around 12:55 p.m., the building was brought down by the Kenya Defence Forces.
Congratulations to the Army for the job that you have been able to do. The coordination that we have had together has been immense. The chiefs through the national government, the coordination ya wale ambao kwamba ni wazee wa mitaa, the county employees, you have truly made me proud. I'm honored to be called your governor.
Residents were asked to keep off the area for at least 2 hours to pave way for the clearing of the debris before they are allowed back into their houses. Despite a few shattered windows, no casualties were reported.
We have had 0 casualties. The building is down as planned. We had 17 ambulances. We had hospitals ready. For now, tupeni nafasi tu ya muda takriban saa moja, ikizidi sana masaa mawili, everyone will go back to their houses. The team in charge is already making preparations. Wakipatiwa go ahead, hii area kutakuwa na excavator leo kuanza kuondoa
The Mombasa County government is promising to investigate if regulations were flawed during the construction of the doomed building.
All the county government building inspectors who signed on any of those particular documents by being entrusted that they're the ones who went to the ground, until the verification is confirmed that what they signed is what is actually on the ground, they are to be sent on compulsory leave until this task force is going to be able to be finalized.
The owners of the building, however, say that the development was above board.
We had already applied for 6th floor. You are right. But at the ground floor level only when we are doing basement and we have the certificate to confirm, there's nothing we are hiding. We got an approval for 4 more floors, which is there. So there should be no speculations. There is nothing ill will. Hakuna kitu tumefanya nyume.
For Prime Edition from Mombasa County, I am Ann Buru.
On our weekly features, cinemas and theatre, the focus is on a 36-part documentary, A Moment in Time, chronicling Tsavo National Park ecological legacy, challenges and conservational triumphs. John Kahiro tells us more.
What ivory really has meant to Africa is little understood.
A Moment in Time is a film inspired by over 50 years of work at the Kenya's Tsavo National Park, nestled in the southeastern part of the country.
The 1,000-year-old story of Kenya's Tsavo is inextricable with ivory.
The film is a documentation of the vast wilderness spanning over 22,000 square kilometers and a home to the Kenya's iconic biodiversity, ranging from the rare black rhino to the famous man-eater lions and the breathtaking landscapes.
It's the only park in Kenya large enough to survive on its own.
The national heritage, however, faces imminent challenges stemming from the adverse effects of climate change and human destruction.
The quest for ivory turned thousands of square miles of fertile country into a wilderness of rapine plunder.
Driven by his passion for conservation and the urgent need to combat ivory trade, Simon Trevor, the film director, embarked on a mission to showcase the critical need for wildlife protection and the solutions to safeguard Kenya's natural heritage.
I mean, there used to be obviously millions of elephants, and now there's less than one in Africa. But that one in the modern world today, where humans require the land for so many reasons, 1 million elephants or 750,000 elephants, if they're looked after, is okay.
A dozen human lives were wrecked or snuffed out in the search.
The journey to producing the 36-part documentary was anything but easy. The director recalls the countless challenges the crew faced, from extreme weather conditions to technical difficulties in capturing Tsavo vast and diverse wildlife.
Well, it's taken, you could say it's taken 50 years. Obviously not filming all the time on this one subject. Spend hours waiting for one 5-second shot, and that's your reward.
They would do so again and again, provided that Tsavo is there to give space and security.
This is what many of us be able to behold over time as it's released.
A Moment in Time film had its grand premiere on the 2nd of April 2025 during the Partners Engagement Forum held at the Nairobi National Park.
The trick will be to accord the environment the same importance as any other natural resource.
The production team believes the documentary is not just a show of the park's beauty, it is a wake-up call to conservationists, the government and other relevant stakeholders to rise up in protecting the country's rich natural heritage.
It's not just a question of saving elephants. The biodiversity, the effects that the Tsavo area has on rainfall, the effects that it has on water retention, water protection of rivers, all these things. You know, you have to take it as a holistic situation.
It is this society that will determine, combined with the efforts of human beings, whether there will be elephants in Tsavo.
John Kahiro for Cinemas and Theatre.
All right, 15 minutes past the top of the hour. We are due for our first break. Plenty more on the other side, including that conversation with Aurelia Rono, PS, State Department for Parliamentary Affairs, on the other side. Stay tuned.
Kupitia star 570 hash tunakupa nafasi ya kuchomoka na this beautiful Mazda Demio. Enjoy a beautiful, clean, semi-leather interior, low mileage, fuel-efficient 1300cc engine, great for personal use and business. Ukitaka kujishindia gari hii, kucheza ni rahisi sana. Chukua simu yako, bonyeza star 570 hash, chagua option 3. And for only 35 shillings, hii gari inaweza kuwa yako. Kumbuka kucheza mara kadhaa, because the more you play, the higher chances of wewe kuwa mshindi.
Mungu ni mwema, asante Mungu. Ile nitakuwa naendesha hivi.
Dial star 570 hash and make this dream car yours.
Cheza Loto Moto.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Kenya.
Wake up with Good Morning Kenya, the morning show that's got it all.
We dive deep into issues shaping our country.
Youth are a voice of a nation.
What is the next step for the young people?
Unpacking political landscape from Monday
Wednesday.
We discuss family matters.
It is very important to guard your relationship.
And for your health.
Someone doesn't wake up and they become an addict. It's in stages.
We've got you covered each and every Tuesday at 9 a.m.
Every Wednesday, it's all about the viewpoint.
A day in politics is like 1,000 years.
Unpacking the biggest stories of the week, getting you insights and getting you ready for your day.
And the package is not yet done. I get to fix your Thursday with some entertainment. Entertainment Thursday, it is.
Good morning, Kenya.
We shape your day.
Good morning, Kenya. Every weekday morning on KBC Channel 1.
Welcome back. You're still on Prime Edition. Time for that discussion happening at the railway headquarters with John Jacob Kioria, where he's having this discussion with the Principal Secretary, State Department for Parliamentary Affairs, that is Aurelia Rono. Of course, just getting a good balance and a synergy between the executive and Parliament. JJ, over to you.
Thank you, Doreen. Back at Broadcasting House, like you rightly said, Dr. Aurelia Rono is the Principal Secretary, State Department for Parliamentary Affairs, and we continue with the conversation from where we left last Wednesday. Just really looking into the functions of the State Department for Parliamentary Affairs and the progress so far in terms of ensuring that even what is being implemented falls right within President William Ruto's bottom-up economic transformation agenda. PS, thank you very much for joining us tonight. You can probably say hi to our viewers and introduce yourself before we begin the conversation. Karibu.
Okay, thank you very much, John. And thank you for having me today again. My name is Aurelia Rono, as you said, BS State Department for Parliamentary Affairs, Office of the Prime Cabinet Secretary. It's really a pleasure to have this great conversation again today, and more importantly, having it in our office, the State Department for Parliamentary Affairs Office. You are welcome.
Thank you very much.
John. Relationship between the legislature and executive is very, very important. It's a foundation to good governance and service. So it's a great conversation today.
As we touch on that, because the other time we were talking about the coordination of legislative policies that go to the National Assembly and how you're coordinating with other departments within government to ensure that there's no clash or overlap. But you have also your own legislative policy that you've taken to the National Assembly, currently before the National Assembly, and that is the assumption of the Office of a President and Transition of Executive Authority Bill 2025. It emanated from this office.
Yes.
What is the whole idea behind it? Because, I mean, we have had transitions, and orderly so after the 2010 Constitution. What did you intend to clear with this new bill that is in Parliament?
Okay, thank you, John. As you rightly put it, we are a state department that is coordinating government legislative agenda, that is assisting the Prime Cabinet Secretary to carry out one of its mandates, which is to coordinate the implementation of government legislative agenda across the ministries. At the same time, a department that also has that mandate or has that right to originate initiatives that we've originated as a State Department for Parliamentary Affairs. One of the bill. Article 141 of the Constitution requires of assumption of office by the President. And in the Assumption of Office of the President Act was enacted by Parliament, which is in operation. But now there's after we went through the law, we realized that there's some gaps that needs to be filled.
Mm-hmm.
The law, the assumption of office of the president law is very clear. On the day, the assumption of office of the president process and the celebration, which is okay, but it lacks the transition of executive authority as other very important offices.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we came up with the assumption of office of the president and transition of executive authority bill, which is currently in Parliament. That's a document that was developed by the State Department for Parliamentary Affairs with other stakeholders, which included the Kenya Law Reform Commission, the Attorney General's office, and many other stakeholders. So this is what we are looking to see. One of the things that the bill is power to the incoming cabinet secretary. Administration to the
Some bit of glitch there, but ideally what is happening is just looking at not just the mandate of the State Department of Parliamentary Affairs, but also just looking at how best it works to coordinate the workings of Parliament and the executive. The moment that link stabilizes, we shall be heading back there. But back to studio, let's continue to inform you. The Speaker of the National Assembly, Moses Wetangula, has banned East Africa Legislative Assembly Member of Parliament Falhada Iman Deko from accessing Parliament buildings for the next 90 days. ODM-nominated MP Omolkheir Harun, who was involved in a fight with Deko, issued a public apology, but Wetangula says she is not off the hook yet. The two were filmed engaging in a catfight within Parliament buildings in a video that has since gone viral, with a section of legislators pointing a finger at Tigania East MP Mpuru Aburi as the source of the clip.
Parliament grounds on Tuesday afternoon turned into a battleground for two female legislators. From a video circulating on social media, nominated Member of Parliament Omolkheir Harun and Eyala Member of Parliament Falhada Iman Deko can be seen engaging in a heated physical confrontation. Other female MPs are seen trying to separate the two, but all their efforts were in vain. The Sergeant-at-Arms intervened successfully and separated the fighting MPs. The incident has since drawn the attention of the National Assembly Speaker Moses Wetangula.
Yes, but you want to fight? It's an honorable fight. Yes, Omolkheir.
Who gave a ruling against the two legislators.
I'm inclined to first accord the nominated member, Honorable Omolkheir, the opportunity to explain herself and whatever explanation she gives, also to apologize to the House. In the meantime, Honorable Falhada is forthwith precluded from accessing the precincts of Parliament, Parliament buildings and facilities for a period of 90 days.
While issuing an apology to the House, Omolkheir termed the incident unfortunate, adding that she deeply regrets it.
And I apologize and regret yesterday's unfortunate incident.
East Africa Legislative Assembly Eyala Member of Parliament Falhada Iman Deko has issued a public apology on the unfortunate incident as well.
Jana kilitokea ilikuwa very shameful.
With the matter being investigated, it is unclear why the two legislators resorted to a physical brawl.
During our conversation, I inquired from Honorable Falhada about incidences where she had personally attacked me and abused me in public forums and social media, as well as extending her verbal insults to my extended family. I was seeking audience with her to find the truth, not anticipating that she would throw a cup of tea at me.
Then this lady, member of parliament, she came up to me, walking towards me whilst I was seated. Akaanza kusema something in Somali, which I didn't capture because it was just quick. And she said, I heard you talk about my dad, blah, blah, and then akanigonga na handbag alikuwa naye.
However, the Speaker has vowed to take action against the legislator responsible for recording the video clip that has since gone viral.
The issue of recording is being investigated by Parliamentary Police and the Sergeant at Arms.
I noticed Honorable Mpuri was recording the video.
And I saw who recorded. And I thought, because he's an experienced member of parliament, he will not release it.
Meanwhile, the Kenya Women Senators Association has called for restraint in handling the brawl witnessed.
We don't support any form of violence or any form of expression that goes towards blows and kicks as a means of communication.
Ni mambo ambayo yamefanyika na yametendeka, na si kwamba yametendeka tu kwa viongozi wa kike. Tumeona Machakos viongozi wamepigana.
Abdiaziz Hashim for Prime Edition.
And the race to fill vacant commissioner seats at the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission IEBC intensified Wednesday as the IEBC selection panel placed 6 candidates under intense scrutiny, pressing them on their records and readiness to oversee one of the country's most delicate democratic process. Among those interviewed was James Leiro Letangule, a senior manager at the Social Health Authority, who came under sharp questioning from the Nelson Makanda-led panel. Letangule was forced to defend his current institution amid mounting concerns over integrity and a growing trust deficit within SHA. Ben Chumba tells us more.
It fell squarely on James Leiro Letangule, the first to appear before the IEBC selection panel on Wednesday. As senior manager at the Social Health Authority, Letangule was forced to defend his current institution amid concerns over integrity and a growing trust deficit within the authority.
Did you really answer how the integrity tag in SHA will follow you to IEBC?
I have a lot of successes about SHA.
SHA has even more trust deficit.
I can confirm that the programs are up and running.
Letangule, hailing from Baringo County, emphasized his commitment to inclusion, vowing that if appointed, he will push to make voter registration mandatory for every Kenyan aged 18 and above.
Personally, I don't see the reason why we should make registration of voters voluntary. So long as you are a Kenyan, 18 years and above, I think it is high time that we onboard everybody to be a voter.
You know, there's mandatory registration and there's mandatory reporting, in which if you don't vote, it's considered as an offense. So which one are you talking about?
Mandatory registration.
Okay.
Next in the hot seat was former Nairobi Hospital CEO James Nyamongo. While his tenure was largely clean, the selection panel questioned his relationship with the hospital's oversight board and how he will bring harmony to IEBC, often marred by internal friction.
There is separation of responsibility. Management have got their responsibility, and that's why we say the commission secretary has got this responsibility with this senior staff. The commission itself up there have got their overseeing what is these people are doing. Give them support. Once you have given the secretary the support, I don't think that. But the moment you interfere with the functional responsibility of the management, then we lose.
Jane Apetet, a former member of both the Kenya Power Board and the Turkana County Assembly Service Board, told the panel her focus will be enforcing the 2/3 gender rule both within the commission and across the electoral process.
The IBC has to ensure that the political parties adhere to this rule when presenting their list for nomination, to ensure that in case
we have it is only men who are elected. Then in the nomination list, we have the women to fill the gap.
Also appearing was Jane Shege-Gitonga, currently a partnerships manager at the IEBC. The panel challenged her to show whether her application was driven by passion and purpose or simply a pursuit of position.
And given a chance, Chair, to come back into that portfolio as a commissioner, I would like to revive these engagements. Why is it that African Union only funds SADC and ECOWAS countries and not East Africa? It's because we haven't reached out to them in matters elections.
Rounding out the day were Jefta Njangi Karingo and John Bosco Akale, who also fielded questions from the Nelson Makanda-led panel as the search for credible, capable and impartial electoral leaders continues. Ben Chumba, Prime Edition.
Jet A1, cheza avieta bila data bila credo. Dial *892# for instant takeoff. Pepea bila pressure kucrash au kucash out. Avieta bila data, avieta bila credo. Uko na kabambe, wewe pia ni rubani mnoma. Dial *892#. Jet A1, michezobets.com. Cheza kwa kuwajibika. Kushiriki ni miaka 18 au zaidi. BCLB license number 0000664.
The world of governance is vast and can be alien to the ordinary man on the street.
Critical issues are going to be discussed.
From white papers to policy positions, it is easier to get lost in the labyrinth of words.
Inside Government takes you to key global metropolis where critical decisions are made and where policies are crafted.
We interview policymakers and senior government officials to highlight and enumerate government policies and projects. We take a deep dive into the underbelly of complex red tape to demystify policies across the country, across the world. Join me, O'Brien Kimani, on Inside Government, only on KBC Channel 1.
Welcome back. You're watching a conversation with Dr. Aurelia Rono, the Principal Secretary, State Department for Parliamentary Affairs, and we apologize for that technical hitch we had with sound. Happens in many times being a live event away from the studio. But welcome back, PS. Let's pick up from where we had left, because you're talking about a part of what this legislation seeks to address is to ensure a smooth transition of executive authority, not just from the president, but even those that have been appointed by the president that is exiting. You were talking about the second point that you wanted to eliminate.
Yeah, the bill proposes also a transition center to be established for the transition committee to operate from during that transition period. It also proposes a transition secretariat to assist the transition committee to do that work. There is something very important, John, that that the bill is also introducing. Yes. That in case the outgoing president is not able to attend the ceremony, the handing over, the swearing, the assumption of office of the president-elect ceremony, what happens to the instruments of power? The current law talks about the outgoing president handing over the instruments of power, which is the sword and the constitution, to the incoming president. But it is silent on what happens in case the outgoing president is not able to attend. Do we stop there? And what happens? There's a lacuna there. So the current law is the current proposal, legislative proposal is proposing what the county governments act, what the senators did to the county governments act when it comes to governance. So the proposal is that in case the outgoing president is not able to attend the ceremony, then the ceremony will proceed. But then it will not, the absence of the outgoing president will not nullify the entire assumption of office, the assumption of office of the president. it will proceed, and it will be considered that the assumption of office of the president has taken place. Quite a number of proposals, John. There is also a transition period where the bill is proposing the do's and don'ts during that transition period. Normally, towards elections, a lot of resources are lost. Resources can be used unconsiderably. At the end of the day, if you do the analysis, you'll realize that there's no value for what was done during that period. So the bill is proposing the do's and don'ts during that transition period. It is then proposing that the cabinet secretaries should not appoint people to parastatals, during that transition period, which is a period 90 days to election and 90 days after the assumption of the office by the president-elect. So it's a very good bill. It's actually trying to safeguard the future of our democracy.
Quite an interesting proposal that exists there.
It's actually in public participation now. It's in Parliament. The committees, the Parliament is still working on it, and the public has an opportunity to contribute to it.
Now that you've spoken about public participation, let's talk about the impact of public participation in government policies and what you have been able to do. So that we also talk about the remarks made just the other day by the Prime Cabinet Secretary on cost-effective public participation.
John, public participation is a constitutional imperative. And the onus lies on us, the public officers and public entities, to involve the citizens on programs and legislation and policy initiatives that they are working on. It is designed to ensure that the citizens are involved in decision-making processes and they are involved in what is affecting their lives. So it is something that you cannot avoid. It must be done. Over years, John, since the promulgation of the 2010 Constitution, we've not had a standalone public participation bill. Cabinet had a discussion on the same and directed the Office of the Prime Cabinet Secretary and the Attorney General's Office to work on the public participation bill. The bill is currently at public participation. It's a public participation bill and it's currently at public participation. But over the years, the last about 15 years or so, we've been relying on the court's decisions on how we are supposed to carry out public participation as a country. There is need to have a standalone, as I told you. So courts have come up with several thresholds on how we should be doing public participation. And MDAs, ministries, departments, and agencies have been having challenges on the extent to which they are supposed to do public participation. So this public participation bill is very critical for us as a country. And I call upon the public to engage with this public participation bill so that it will ensure that the principles, look at the case laws, courts have come up with a lot of principles around public participation. Principles like you need to ensure that there is reasonable opportunity to participate by people, reasonable access to information, and then you ask yourself, what does reasonable mean? So this public participation bill will help us to go around that and ensure that we have quality public participation that will help us achieve the initiative that we have.
Let me ask PS, in this public participation bill that you say is currently in the public participation space, during its formulation, did you consider the different interpretations given by the judiciary regarding what public participation ought to be?
Exactly, John. All the team went through all the judicial cases or rulings and extract the principles that the courts have proposed to be the right way of doing public participation, and all those principles have been inputted into the public participation bill. So the bill is well informed. It's a lot of stakeholder engagement was done in the development of that bill.
All right.
Yeah.
There were remarks that repeated to the Prime Cabinet Secretary, and I think he's repeated them almost 2 or 3 times, regarding cost-effective public participation.
Yes.
Is it a cost analysis that this office has been able to do and realize that probably your public participation is such a tedious, expensive process, so that the Prime Cabinet Secretary says it is a principle enshrined in the Constitution, but we need to revisit the cost?
Yes, Joe, that's really a discovery as a result of what we do as a State Department, coordinating the government legislative agenda. As I told you earlier, government legislative agenda is about policies, it's about legislative initiatives which becomes bills, and it's about statutory instruments or regulations. Now, in the process of coordinating, we tried to find out then what is the cost of coming up with these legislative initiatives. As we speak, we have over 25 legislative initiatives that we project to work on as a government. That is to align with the National Development Agenda, to align with the Constitution, to align with the development goals that we have. Now, analyzing the cost of each initiative, it's coming to a huge figure, Joe. The entire process of legislative initiative, which I told you last time, when you're developing a legislation, it's not just a one-point step. It's a series of steps that are involved. When you look at this series of steps, the step that takes a lot of resources is at public participation. As I said earlier, public participation is a must-do, it's a constitutional imperative. But then we need to look at the cost also. And I repeat the question that the Prime Cabinet Secretary said the other time. Are we cost-effective in matters public participation? Because if a legislative initiative requires a ministry to have around 10 to 100 million to develop that legislative initiative, then we still need to ask ourselves, how do we approach this so that we use little resources to achieve what we want? John, if you do that calculation, about 25 initiatives, assuming you use the list, because from the record that we have, from the report that we have, after collecting, I told you we have a list of all the legislative initiatives that we are working on them, together with their estimated cost. So the least cost that we have is around 10 million. So assuming you take that, but others can go even up to 150 million. Assuming you take the least, which is 10 million, meaning to process about 700 legislation, that will require you around how much? Good amount of money. So we need to ask ourselves as a country, yes, we must do public participation, but let's see how best we can approach this so that we save resources for projects that citizens are waiting for. Citizens are waiting for roads, they are waiting for water, they are waiting for all those projects that, they'd want to have. But here, they also have a right for public participation. How do we approach this so that at the end of the day, we've achieved the legislative initiative that we want with proper public participation, but we've also saved resources to use in delivering on the National Development Agenda. Now, remember again that the Constitution requires the executive to do public participation. At the same time, it requires the legislature to do public participation. So I will spend here probably a ministry A or B can spend here probably 20 million on a piece of legislation, right? Or 10 million, according to what we collected. Assuming it spends 10 million, then it goes to Parliament. That is one piece of legislation.
Then it goes to Parliament. Parliament spends the same amount again. At the end of the day, if you analyze, it's a conversation that we must have. How do we approach this so that at the end of the day, we've achieved the legislative initiative that we want, but we've also saved on cost. And also the citizens have participated effectively and efficiently on the development of this initiative. Yeah.
The last time we spoke, we were talking about how your State Department, in conjunction with the National Assembly and the Senate, also have smoothened some of the teething problems you experienced, obviously after the introduction of members of the executive in the plenary of both houses of Parliament. We didn't talk about the challenges that still exist now. What are the challenges, even after smoothing some of these things? What are some of the challenges you're experiencing in trying to build that synergy between yourselves and the legislature?
Okay, John, before I list the challenges that you're experiencing now, probably I touch on some of the challenges, some of the issues that we had earlier as we were establishing or operationalizing the State Department. One of them was the silo operations of ministries and departments and agencies. Every ministry was doing their own things, and as I told you last time, that would lead to overlaps and duplication of work. And that was one of the challenges. But this State Department came to sort out that because, as I told you, we are there to unlock the bottlenecks, to unlock the issues that are impeding the progress of a legislative initiative. So the issue of silo operations by ministries, departments, and agencies has been sorted by our existence. Because now we are here coordinating, and therefore we would know what everyone is doing. If there is duplication, we are there to sort. If there are stakeholder issues, then we are there to sort out as State Department in the Office of the Prime Cabinet Secretary. So that is one. Number two was unclear processes. The processes on from the inception to the end, or to the stage where the legislative initiative should move to Parliament were not very clear. And therefore, ministries and departments and agencies were struggling on the stages, the clear stages on how to follow to have their initiatives flow. That has been sorted. That has been sorted by the development of the national government guidelines for the development of national policies and legislation, which was developed by the State Department in consultation with State Law Office and the Kenya Law Reform Commission and KIPRA and so many other institutions. So that challenge has been sorted out. Number three is the issue of the cost or budget constraints.
Yes.
Yeah, budget constraints. Ministries have been having these initiatives, but the budgetary constraints have been limiting them from progressing these initiatives ahead. That is a challenge that we still have up to now. I've told you the cost of doing this is too high, especially the cost of doing public participation. That challenge is still there to date, and we are trying to crack how we can approach that. Even after we have the public participation bill approved into law, then as we work on this, we need to have this conversation on how can we be cost effective as we develop this initiative. Because you know what, John, the development of legislative initiatives and policies is a continuous thing because of emerging issues. Now we are talking about the artificial intelligence, which was not there some few years ago. And therefore, we need to have laws that are protecting our people from these the emerging issues that are coming. So the challenge that I've told you, the budgetary constraint is still there, but we need to go around and see how best we can sort out that, because we cannot afford to spend 10 million on processing one legislation. We have to see what are these cost drivers that we need to deal with for us to be able to come up with these initiatives. Another point, another challenge that was there is what I said the other time. We are in presidential system of government. When we were in the parliamentary system of government, the parliament could easily know what is happening in the executive because we had members in parliament that were also members of the executive. Now, with presidential system of government, there was that, there was no seamless engagement between the two arms of government. Remember we said these two arms of government are independent, but because they share the same national values, then we need to collaborate for us to deliver on national interest. So this, that was a challenge that was there, but this State Department has come to be a bridge between the legislative arm and the executive arm.
All right.
Another challenge that was there was these parliamentary liaison services that were not effective. You see, we are now able to process parliamentary inquiries very fast because we have parliamentary liaison services in place. And we've done a lot of capacity building to parliamentary liaison officers across ministries and departments and merge them or introduce them to parliamentary processes. They can interact with the clerks and the officers in Parliament in case there is a question or an inquiry from Parliament that needs a ministry to respond to. There is that now seamless engagement between the two arms of government through parliamentary liaison services. So the challenges that were there were many, but with the existence of this State Department, most of those challenges have been sorted out. I think the key one that we need to crack it out is the cost of doing a legislation.
All right.
Yes.
Let's use the remaining 2 minutes and talk about the reforms in parastatus that were instituted by the administration of President William Ruto. Of course, this brings a lot of legal reforms that need to be instituted and taken to Parliament to bring synergy in terms of how some of these, some of them will be phased out. And I'm sure probably for the State Department it could be a headache of what it is. But tell us how you're faring in terms of ensuring that even this phase out of some of this parastatus is actually backed by law.
It's very true that early this year, I think it was 21st January to be precise, Cabinet sat and considered a CAP memo that was taken to Cabinet on state corporation reforms. And indeed, Cabinet agreed to implement the state corporation reforms, to dissolve some of the state corporations, to restructure some, to merge some so as to increase the operational efficiency and also deal with redundancy. As a State Department coordinating this GLA, the Government Legislative Agenda, I can tell you that we had legislative proposals from some of those state corporations that are going to be merged, others which are going to be dissolved. We had some legislative proposals from them through their ministries. But now our State Department is going to work with the parent ministry for those state corporations to harmonize the government legislative agenda to align with what the cabinet agreed on that day. So it's just a matter of harmonizing
that is the remaining bit,
agenda.
Harmonizing for it. I want you to take a minute and look at that camera there, so that you are also able to explain to Kenyans particularly on how they can engage the State Department for Parliamentary Affairs. I know there are public participation exercises coming in these coming days. How do they get to be part of that public participation exercise? Through that camera, PS.
Maybe I'll start by saying this, that citizens have a right to be sensitized on what is happening. Ministries and state departments have been publicizing their public participation through print media, social media. But we've come out as a State Department also to complement, to support the ministries and departments by publicizing the reviews of policies and legislative initiatives through our social media platforms. So you can be checking on the State Department of Parliamentary Affairs platform to check what is under review within that week. And I want to close by saying
yes.
The relationship or the synergy between the legislator and the executive is sincerely not a luxury. It is a necessity for a democratic nation. For the progress of a democratic nation, there is need to have a synergy between the two arms of government. So this will ensure that we deliver the greatest good for our people. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Daktari, and we wish you all the best as you continue to dispense your duties as the Principal Secretary, State Department for Parliamentary Affairs. It's an onerous duty, of course, and of course not so many people understood the release of Executive Number 1 that allocated these duties of coordination of, the Executive and Parliament to the Office of the Prime Cabinet Secretary. But I'm sure within these 2 episodes that we've had on Prime Edition, Kenyans have been able to appreciate the kind of work you're doing, and I wish you all the very best.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to having more.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
The Principal Secretary, State Department for Parliamentary Affairs, Dr. Aurelia Rono, speaking to us really regarding the relationship between the Executive and the Legislature. She says it is not a luxury, it is very important in a growing democracy like Kenya's. This is where we put a cap on this end of Radio's headquarters. Back to you, Doreen and the team in studio.
Inuka na loto moto sasa kwa star 570 hash option ya 4 kuna kashamba juja na nika 50 by 100 worth 1.7 million Kenyan shillings. Na hii si shamba tu, iko kwa prime location few minutes from Juja Town. Stima yako iko ndani, na kama ni development rapid and so promising. Na mambo ya landlord, mwisho wa mwanzo ni hapa. Ukishinda hili shamba tunakuongeza 1 million Kenyan shillings ujijengee nyumba yako kwa shamba yako. Kuinuka na loto moto ni kucheza sasa hivi kupitia star 570 hash option ya 4 au register deposit na ucheze sasa hivi kwa www.tushinde.com na ujishindie shamba hili na addition of 1 million Kenyan shillings. Inuka na loto moto.
Welcome back to studio. My name is Werimu Jenga. I take you through the day's business news. Central Bank of Kenya has dismissed claims of currency manipulation, attributing the shilling's stability to targeted policy interventions and prudent monetary management. CBK Governor Kamau Thuge says a strong balance of payments, solid export base and capital inflows are some of the factors supporting Kenya's unit, which has hovered around 129 shillings to the dollar for months now, despite worsening global geopolitics.
Kenya's economy continues to demonstrate resilience, with the shilling remaining relatively stable against the US dollar in recent months, despite ongoing global markets and currency volatility. In the last 7 months, the shilling has been trading at 129 to the dollar, despite the ongoing global trade war between the US and leading economic powers like China and the European Union. Central Bank of Kenya Governor Dr. Kamau Thuge attributes the stabilization of the exchange rate to deliberate policy measures and improved overall balance of payments.
Very good performance in terms of exports. We've had good performance in terms of travel receipts, and we've had good performance in the current account. So I think taking all that into account, we feel that there's no need for a stronger shilling, and there's no need for a weaker shilling. I think we're just at the right place.
Thuge says the recently imposed 10% reciprocal tariff by the United States will have minimal impact on the Kenyan economy, though exports to the US are likely to drop by close to $100 million.
It's still relatively small compared to, of course, our GDP. Our GDP is north of $122 billion. So I do think that the impact of the higher tariffs on the economy will be muted by the expansion on the aggregate demand side, whether it's the private sector increase in both consumption and investment.
On the domestic front, the governor expressed concerns over the rising level of non-performing loans, which now stands at 17.2%, urging commercial banks to increase lending to the private sector.
I think that process of getting rid of the real sector pending bills should also have an impact on the NPLs, because some of the NPLs are actually in the construction sector.
The CBK governor further says National Treasury and the International Monetary Fund are negotiating a loan facility with Kenya to ease supply-side pressures. On the state of the domestic banking market, CBK says it is conducting on-site inspections on risk-based pricing for all commercial lenders in the country with mixed results.
Now, President William Ruto has called on African nations to harness the potential of the African Continental Free Trade Area to accelerate social economic development. Ruto says in the face of growing geopolitical tensions around the world, intra-Africa trade remains the most viable option to drive growth on the continent. The president spoke during the opening of the Africa Chamber of Commerce and Industry Conference for Africa in Nairobi.
The African Continental Free Trade Area, AfCFTA, which connects 54 African nations, seeks to create a market of over 1.3 billion people with a combined GDP of more than $3.4 trillion. President William Ruto says the African Continental Free Trade Area, AfCFTA, presents an opportunity for African countries to strengthen intracontinental trade, create jobs and stimulate sustainable economic development. With the global landscape increasingly becoming shaky due to geopolitical uncertainties, Ruto urged African nations to unite and capitalize on the trade bloc's potential to reduce dependency on external markets.
The Africa Continental Free Trade Area brings into being the largest single market of 1.4 billion people in 55 countries, with a GDP of close to 3.4 trillion.
Ruto acknowledged the challenges faced by African nations in fully realizing the AfCFTA's potential. He called for stronger infrastructure development, improved trade facilitation, and the removal of non-tariff barriers that hinder the free movement of goods and services across the continent.
The expansion of modern transport and communication infrastructure also shows that we are preparing for a predictable and prosperous future. Conversations are ongoing in the LAPSET corridor that will connect Kenya, Ethiopia, and South Sudan. The first almost 700 kilometers of road is being constructed.
He was speaking during the Kenya National Chamber of Commerce and Industry African Conference, where President Eric Ruto says deepening integration could boost African trade by $150 billion annually by 2030.
The government has urged business leaders and players in the business sector to utilize the potential and the impact of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area in a bid to spur economic growth, even as the government continues implementing strategies aimed at revitalizing Kenya's economy. Reporting from Prime Edition from Nairobi, my name is Frederick Mwoki.
Plans are underway to increase the digital economy contribution to the country's GDP from the current 9.4% to 30% by 2032 through innovation that will enhance cyber resilience. Head of Public Service Felix Koskei says this will bolster cybersecurity governance as well as expand digital adoption as a key driver of economic growth, government revenue and socio-economic development.
The government of Kenya has prioritized digitization as a cornerstone of its economic strategy, underscoring the integration of digital technologies into key sectors as essential for driving growth. At least over 22,000 government services have been digitized and more than 13 kilometers of fiber connecting cables laid down to offer internet to over 18,000 public institutions and 200 digital hubs made operational. The growth has, however, been met with hitches, as the latest cybersecurity report released by the Communications Authority revealed that the country lost 10.71 billion shillings to cybercrime in 2023. In order to bridge this gap, the government is tapping the innovative space to embrace technologies that will be responsible for detecting, protecting, and responding to cyber threats, preventing initial breaches from escalating into successful cyber attacks while maintaining system efficiency.
At the heart of our national digital strategy lies the National Digital Master Plan 2022-2032, a comprehensive blueprint that positions Kenya to harness the fourth industrial revolution's full potential.
Additionally, experts in the ICT sector have been encouraged to leverage on opportunities within the ministry to further propel the government's digital agenda.
We have laid the infrastructure and our young people, our country are adoptive and are keen to explore this digital space. And so it's important all of our professionals to come in also and make this space a better space.
The remarks emerged during the opening of the Information Systems Audit and Control Association conference in Mombasa, where students are being equipped with technical and soft skills to make them employable in the digital space.
We do a lot of mentorship programs through our She Leads Techs program and do a lot of outreach for universities in order to build the future generation and build security skills, cybersecurity skills specifically, that they can use once they join the market.
Ndotamokami for Prime Edition.
Well, that's all we had lined up for you, but we have more stories on our website at kbc.co.ke. Up next is Bernard Okum with the day's sports. My name is Wairimu Jenga. Have a good night.
From the bliss of new beginnings to the trials of commitment, this is a celebration of resilience, passion, and the power of togetherness. Join us as we unravel real-life stories, because every journey deserves to be cherished, for better, for worse, on KBC Channel 1.
Glad for joining us. It is time for the latest from the world of sports with me, Bernard Okumu. Plans are complete for the 21st edition of the Sports Personality of the Year Awards, which has been slated for April 16th at the Kenyatta International Convention Center here in Nairobi. Now, the Gala Awards, with the theme celebrating women's excellence in sports, will see several sports personalities rewarded in 11 categories, including Sportswoman of the Year, Sportsman of the Year, Coach of the Year, Sports Team and Sportswomen of the Year, Schools Girls Team of the Year, Schools Boys Team of the Year. In the Sportswoman of the Year year category, double Olympic gold medalist Beatrice Chebet is among the top nominees after the list was whittled down to 5. She'll compete for the top honors against Faith Kipyegon, World Women's Marathon record holder Ruth Chepngetich, Boston and New York Marathon winner Helen Obiri, and youngster Faith Cherotich. In the Sportsman of the Year category, boxer Boniface Mugunde is among the 5 finalists in the nominations list. Mugunde will be facing off against Nairobi Thunder's Albert Odero and athletes Emmanuel Wanyonyi, Ronald Kwemoi, and Benson Kipruto.
The success of our female athletes who have done exceptionally very well. But apart from that, this event is actually a celebration of the excellent performance of our sportsmen throughout the whole year of last year.
Also in soccer, the national women's soccer team Harambee Starlets suffered a 2-0 defeat against Ivory Coast during their friendly match played at Felix Houphouët-Boigny Stadium in Abidjan. It was the second of the back-to-back friendly encounters between the two sides after their first meeting last Friday ended with a similar scoreline in favor of the host. Timita Yasmin and Diallo Ami scored in each half to hand their side the win against Kenya, who struggled to break down their opponent's defense. Harambee Starlets used the friendly to fine-tune themselves ahead of the 2026 Africa Women's Cup of Nations qualifier against Gambia in October. And Francis Mutuku, the Secretary General of the National Olympic Committee of Kenya, has submitted his nomination papers to the Independent Electoral Boundaries Commission offices in Nairobi ahead of the NOG's election scheduled April 24th. Mutuku, who is gunning for the committee's presidency, will battle it out with the current NOG First Vice President Shadrack Maluki.
While submitting his nomination papers, Mutuku emphasized the importance of working closely with all federations to build a cohesive and a thriving sports ecosystem.
My motivation for this position is to have a clear vision on where the National Olympic Committee should be at. We have put together an excellent team of people who are ready to serve, people who are ready to bring innovation into the system, and people who are ready to elevate the National Olympic Committee to be equal to the standards of our athletes who are world record holders, world champions, and people can be able to do very well. So we are simply here to serve, to innovate, and to elevate.
As a candidate, Mutuku added that he's positioning himself as a bridge between the different sports bodies, government institutions, and corporate sponsors.
We always talk about athletes and we're working for them and we're doing work for them, but just having them on the table to be able to offer their feedback in different platforms. We've had, at the last 8 years, we've had athletes forums where we've been engaging athletes.
He believes that for Kenya to continue to excel in the international competitions, there must be better coordination, funding and development of talent from the grassroots levels.
What I believe, no athlete should ever feel unsafe in the pursuit of greatness. I will work to ensure safeguarding policies, psychological support, and confidential reporting structure are a majority in every federation.
As the elections scheduled for April 24 draw nearer, the sports community is eagerly awaiting the outcome of this critical leadership contest.
Well, and that's it from me. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Bernard Okumu. Enjoy the rest of your viewing. Back to Doreen Arange to bring this particular bulletin to a close. Doreen?
Thank you, Okumu, for that. And that's all the time we had for you tonight. Thank you so much for sticking around from 9 p.m. till now. This has been Prime Edition. I'm Doreen Arange. Brian Muraru has been our sign language interpreter. Good night.
Down Express! Twende, town! Wacha tao kweli. Kalia hapo nyuma, kalia. Bado haijajaa dere watu wengine 7.
Kwani wazako si ungekulia kweli? Sasa umetoka wapi? Mimi sitaki mahindi leo.
Wewe unanishia mkate.
Siagushi mkate fubi.
Wewe ongea bado usiguze mkate wangu.
Si ushike hii. Wazako kulia uko mbali na mimi. Si mimi nakulamiwa ni wewe.
Donda, gari imejaa na bado unasema watu waingie. Tuambie ndere hapo apunguze wimbo. Niongee na sana hapa.
Hakuna volume inapunguzwa hapa. Kama unataka kuendesha gari yako, enda dial *570# option ya 3. Watu wanaendesha magari hapa yenyewe na wewe bado unapiga nyenyenye kwa matatu.